Halloween is right around the corner, and there's no better time to take a look at the most terrifying characters in comics. It's tough to pull off jump scares on the page, but comics are perfect for over-the-top monsters, skin-crawling psychological horror, and the kind of existential terror that can only be inspired by a large stone man in a purple skirt. Let's take a look at the 10 scariest comic book monsters, presented by eBay. Rasputin. There have been plenty of fictional depictions of Rasputin through the years, but none quite like the unkillable Nazi occultist who kicks off the story in Mike Mignolia's all-time great comic, Hellboy. The Rasputin we see here is a more purely evil one than in most other stories, allied with the Ogdru Jihad, chthonic monsters from beyond space and time trying to escape their prison and bring about the end times. He's also the one who summons Hellboy to Earth. The cool thing about Hellboy and Rasputin is if you read these stories, eventually you will get to see every monster from almost every mythology. Rasputin himself has sent vampires, dragons, Nazis who never take off their gas masks, Baba Yaga, demons, and elder gods against the big guy. Nightmare. Created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, Nightmare is rumored to be one of the villains of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. He's also terrifying. He's Lord of the Dream Dimension, where he feeds off the terror of sleeping humans. He's basically Marvel's Freddy Krueger. Nightmare has battled heroes from all over the Marvel Universe, from Hercules to the Hulk to Thor to most recently the X-Men. But don't kid yourself, he belongs to Doctor Strange in the weird world of Marvel magic, and that's where you'll find his creepiest stories. The Corinthian. While we're on the subject of evil dreams, picture having your eyeballs popped out of their sockets and snacked on by a smartly dressed man, and he's feeding your eyeballs to the jagged, toothy mouths in his own eye sockets. That deeply unpleasant image is exactly what the Sandman's dream wanted in your head when he created the Corinthian, his greatest nightmare, who eventually went rogue on Earth and had to be stopped. Gaiman's Sandman is one of the greatest comic series of all time, but it's rarely straight horror. The Corinthian is one of the exceptions. Darkseid. Darkseid is pretty terrifying, actually. Jack Kirby's dark god to end all dark gods, the Lord of Apocalypse, has been a lot of things to the DC Universe since his creation. He's tried to conquer the DCU almost constantly since the beginning. One time, he accidentally turned the entire Earth into zombies. Deceased sounded like a joke when it was announced, but the series was wonderful. It was full of heart and had great moments for so many DC heroes. But an underrated part of its excellence was how utterly terrifying the first issue was. It's only a matter of time before he gets put in a new Justice League movie. The Xenomorph. Comics don't do jump scares anywhere near as well as other mediums, but they do slow burn, oppressive tension, and moody terror perfectly. And the Xenomorph from the Alien movies is the right monster for that vibe. There have been a lot of Alien comics over the years, and while Marvel's most recent entry is extremely solid, the best of the most recent batch has to be Aliens Dead Orbit, James Stokoe's dense, intricate story. He sets the Xenomorph loose on a space station and scares the hell out of you as he rips the crew to pieces, physically and emotionally. Aliens, maybe? James Tynion IV and Alvaro Martinez Bueno's The Nice House on the Lake is one of the scariest apocalypses ever put on the page. The first issue opens with a group of friends and acquaintances arriving at a lake house in Wisconsin for a weekend getaway organized by one friend. They discover more about their relationship while there, as the world literally burns around them. Later issues introduce some mystery about whether or not the apocalypse actually happened or can be averted, but the first issue shows it in fairly great detail, and it's incredible. The Family Man. John Constantine, Hellblazer, the long-running Vertigo series about John Constantine's adventures through the occult, had a lot of memorable monsters, demons, and supernatural threats, but none of them were quite as scary as a regular old run-of-the-mill serial killer. The Family Man and John crossed paths when John found a collectibles dealer selling memorabilia from his crimes, and that led John to try and stop him from killing any more parents and children in their homes. What followed was the least supernatural story Constantine was ever in, but it was so scary, it'll make you want to check on your sleeping kids while reading it. Hot Dog. That's right, one of the most terrifying monsters in comics history is Jughead Jones' dog. Afterlife with Archie, the horror comic that sounded like a joke when it came out, was utterly terrifying. It showed Riverdale falling into a zombie outbreak and followed Archie, Betty, Veronica, and the other lucky few who survived as they tried to make it out of the overrun town. And then it flashed back to the beginning of the outbreak, where we saw Hot Dog get hit by a car. Jughead took his beloved pet to Sabrina Spellman and begged her to bring him back. And you know the old saying by now, sometimes dead's better. Your own insecurity and also a jazz demon. Blue in Green is one of the best horror comics ever published, and it's mostly about the terror and regrets of wasted potential. The book follows Eric through the traditional Crossroads tale, where he cuts a deal with a demon, becomes a breakthrough talent, and then has to pay the bill. But two things really make it stand out: the way it uses nostalgia and memory to heighten the terror Eric feels, and the art from Anand R.K. The art is disorienting, dark, moody, and very scary. Reed Richards. The Fantastic Four's second greatest villain, alternate versions of Reed Richards, is directly responsible for the zombie outbreak in the series that was turned into the best What If episode. Following the runaway success of the original Marvel Zombies series, Marvel put Robert Kirkman and Sean Phillips on a one-shot origin story, Marvel Zombies: Dead Days. The virus makes its way to Earth from space, and while the heroes are losing, there is still hope, even after so many of them were lost, until Mr. Fantastic decides to make a brutal heel turn. What happens next must be read and absorbed slowly, because it's awful. It's also one of the most effective zombie comics ever. Grab these horror comics and more on eBay now.